This marvel of engineering is Huawei's Mate XS2. I had a bit of time on with it at the launch event in Milan, but now I've had it for a day and I can give you a proper first impressions here of this foldable. So it's an outer fold. Most of the other foldables are inner folds like the Z Fold 2, Z Fold 3, and even Huawei's Mate X2, which I own as my personal main phone. That's an inner fold, but this one, the screen wraps around the outside. So here it is in its tablet form. So that's a 7.8-inch screen. And then you simply just fold it in. There's a little latch there and it becomes a 6.5-inch phone. Very easy to handle, great size, great weight. It's only about, well, just under 260 grams, which for a foldable is actually light. And then the mechanism with opening that does feel great. Now we do get this. It's a case, and I'll show you shortly just how to put this on. So it's a protective cover that is going to be covering the back of the phone, and it allows you to unclip it and then you can unfold it in its folded state. So good that they did include that. I do feel that's an absolute must because it is quite easy to damage. And then you will find this here too, which is just a little box which is going to contain there the cable and our charger. So that is a type A to type C cable. The charger is their supercharged, the 66 watts, and it's going to take approximately an hour to fully charge it. This is then the way the case works. So it clips onto this part here, which we do have the button to release it, and it's going to be protecting the back side of the screen because it's an outer screen fold that's generally, it's more prone to being damaged, of course. So to unclip that is you simply just need to, on the corners, top or bottom there, and just pull that, and then when you press the button on the back, you can then simply unfold it like so and use it, and you've got that case there as some added protection. Now, when this phone is folded, it is like a normal phone kind of size. So this is a 6.5-inch screen. The resolution of this is then 1176 by 2480. So it looks sharp, looks good. You can use it like a normal phone. And you notice here that we've got a cutout now. So this is a front-facing, a screen cutout camera that, they don't kind of really need because you still can use the screen on the back here with the main cameras, but they did decide to make that change compared to the Mate XS, this being the XS2, they've made this. So this is a 10.7 megapixel camera. Now size-wise, weight-wise too, it's a lot smaller than the Mate X2, which is Huawei's other foldable, which happens to be my own personal phone that I do use. I love foldable phones. So this one's quite chunky, but the build of it does feel a lot more solid, less prone to damage, of course. So the screen being an outer fold is more susceptible to damage, especially on that edge. You imagine if I accidentally dropped this phone and it was just to hit something like that, it could damage it. Now, Huawei, in their press conference in Milan, they did state and say that it does have a protective coating over it, that it's supposed to be quite damage resistant for a foldable phone. So when you want to unfold it, you press here on the back and it'll just pop right up. You watch this. Spring loaded, and then you just have to pull it back. Now, there's a bit of resistance to do this. If you don't do it, it's not going to automatically unfold by itself. So you actually have to pull that around, and it feels like, you've got to apply a little bit of pressure, but it doesn't feel like you're going to break anything. I don't hear any creaking noises or anything like that. So we do have metal right here, alloy. This back here almost looks like a synthetic leather, but when you touch it and you press it, there's no sponginess to it. So it's actually just a plastic they are using right there on the back. So once now it is unfolded, that's when you get it into its tablet form, and we are looking now at a 7.8-inch screen, giving us a total resolution here of 2224 by 2480, with that resolution. So nice and big, large, and it's giving us that tablet experience. So around the outsides here, that's all a metal frame. When I run my finger over where the fold is, it's probably the best fold now that I've seen, the crease. It's really very, very, very hard to see. You have to get it in the reflection to really see that fold. And again, just running my thumb over that, I can't really feel that fold at all. So they've done such a good job with that. Now comparing the crease there to the Mate X2 here, you'll see that one at certain angles, you could, look at that, see that crease now? It's way more obvious, even though I think this is still better than what we have with, say, the Galaxy Z Fold 2, Z Fold 3. I'll go back now to the XS, and it's so hard to pick up. So they've done an excellent job with that fold, the crease, just being almost invisible. The side here is made out of metal. We've got an always-on capacitive fingerprint reader. I do like these side-reading fingerprint readers more actually than the in-screen ones. They tend to be more accurate. They tend to be a little bit faster. And then a volume up and down button here at the top. So I'll just demonstrate that, place my thumb on it. The location is good. It unlocks very quickly, and I have not really had any issues with it at all. It seems to be just as fast as the Mate X2. Or probably actually a little faster. The Mate X2 animation makes it seem a bit slower there. So you can see some design similarities between the Mate X2 right here at the top and then our Mate XS2. So the XS2, when folded, it's only 11 millimeters. So it's quite a bit slimmer, and that lower weight is really good. It's one of the lightest foldables out there. I think, in fact, it is the lightest foldable. And we've got a microphone. IR transmitter here is located just in one of those little speaker holes. So that's one of two speakers, so dual loudspeakers. You can see metal frame all around here, curved edges, does feel very good. And there's the antenna lines. So that's where it's similar. We do have the IR transmitter here on the Mate X2. And then flipping them around now, very careful doing this, that I don't want to damage either of these expensive phones with their more fragile screens. So we've got loudspeakers here, and you can see the antenna lines, and both of them do have a full spec Type-C port. So that means video out. We've got USB 3.1 data speeds and Huawei's desktop mode. So the SIM tray is located here on the Mate XS2, and it will take a nano SIM or their NM storage, which is expensive and reasonably hard to get. So there is curved glass just along here, a microphone. We have a main 50 megapixel camera. Now this one has an f1.8 aperture, an 8 megapixel zoom camera. Now that has optical image stabilization, 3 times optical zoom with it. So it's not the 10 times we do get with the Mate X2, which I'm quite fond of. That's packing a lot of different cameras in it. So it's not going to be such a camera powerhouse or not so versatile compared to that model, but still it's got a bit in here. And then a 13 megapixel ultra wide, which is f2.2 dual tone LED flash. And of course, this part of the screen is going to be the most susceptible. If you're not using a case, imagine you place this down on a table. There's a little tiny piece of sand or something on the table that you could get scratches just along the screen here. So that's why it is included, of course, a case I did show you before. And our screen here, so it looks next to the Mate X2 very similar. There's something about these screens because of the thin coating they have on it that it's just, I think, better than the glass we get on top. So normally we've got Gorilla Glass Victus on top of these screens with a normal phone, and it doesn't seem as punchy, the contrast, the colors, the blacks. With the foldable screens, there's just something about them that is just way better, that we're getting this deeper black, these brighter colors. It just comes through a lot more, and it's just more vivid, and I do really like the experience of these foldable screens. So with our display here, under your typical display options, so you can override and set the screen refresh rate to be 120 Hertz if you want. Now, I would have liked to have seen here a 90 Hertz option. A lot of manufacturers aren't doing that. Huawei normally does, we'll see some of their other phones they have, but not here with this one. So this is 90 Hertz on the Mate X2, and the XS2 is the 120, of course, which you can forcibly run that, but normally with the UI, it will be 120 Hertz, so it looks very smooth, fluid. Color mode, temperature, there's a lot of different things in here that we can tweak and adjust, so those are real standard settings there for Huawei. Scaling's all there, so not like the Vivo X Fold that I recently covered in the channel. That one, you couldn't scale the display properly. You had to go through developer options to do it, and even then, it didn't really look right, but it does here. So animations are looking good. The UI is very fluid, and overall, it's a great screen. Really do like them. They're bright, and yes, you can make it out in direct sunlight. Another thing with the screen, you'll notice that it does have this little edge that you feel, and that's because it's got this perfectly applied screen protector over the top of it. Now, I believe that only Huawei can apply and remove these. I would never attempt to remove it myself. So if this outer screen does get a little bit scratched up, I believe you can take it to be serviced, where they will then reapply and put a new screen protector on it. The Mate XS2 is running Harmony OS, so we don't have EMUI with this particular model here, but I believe that the global version will. So this is almost identical. Both of them don't have Google support with them, and you can run a lot of those Google apps, which I won't really get into a lot of detail of, but there's an app that really helps that I do have on this model called G-Space, and you're able to get Google Maps, things like that. And I'm able to live just fine without it. But yes, of course, I know that in the comments, a lot of people will say that they can't, and it's not not an option for them. So security patch level is May, so that's good. It's this month. And this version here has 8 gigabytes of RAM. There is another version with 12, and it is running a last gen chipset. So Snapdragon 888, and it's only the 4G version. So that's the only modem it's got in there that they're able to use in this. So I guess all their Kirin 9000 processors with the 5G version like that's in this, they've run out of those. So performance of the UI and everything does seem to be very good, but I just got a couple of benchmarks that I do want to show you here. Before I get onto those, there have been a couple of big patches. I mean, huge. Look at this. 6 gigabytes worth that I've already installed. And then this one here, which was 1.1 gigabytes. So they're patching things. So performance-wise, the Snapdragon 888 in this, in just the balance mode, so not the performance mode, you can see is almost the same as the Kirin. In fact, a little bit faster than the Kirin 9000 5G. The internal storage speeds on both of those very quick, very similar here. So this one's getting some really good random reads and writes, and they are just a little bit better here, as you can see on the Mate X2, which gets a crazy sequential read score of over 2,000 there. But both of them very fast, but the sequential write is a bit lower here, even though they both got 256 gigabytes of storage. In real-world use, they feel very, very similar. It's just this one with the 120 hertz screen, you notice that UI is a little bit more responsive in everything you do. The Mate XS2 does have super device support. So does this model here. So this is really handy. If you happen to have a Huawei tablet, a laptop, or a PC from them, then you're able to just seamlessly work between the devices. You can connect them up, you can move over files, wireless display. It is actually quite useful, so that support's there. Do have NFC on board. Now, for those of you that want to do your payments through this, so you don't obviously have access to Google Pay, there is another way around that, and that's to use Curve that I'm using on the Mate X2. And you can see that I've got Netflix, I'm running YouTube Studio, YouTube, and all those different apps, again, using this program here called G-Space. If I put it onto this, you actually have access to those applications. So that's rather handy. It's an application that's emulating basically another phone to fool the system and to run these apps here side by side. The only downside to running this G-Space that I've encountered is that the load times on some of those applications just can be a little bit slow at first because it needs to load up G-Space, and then what it's doing is, well, emulating, and I think it loses a little bit of performance in that, but it's another possibility. You've, of course, got Pedal Maps on here too that you can run instead of Google Maps. If you need your Gmail access, you can just run their email application. So there's plenty of workarounds, and life without having native Google support has never actually been an issue for me on this model here, the Mate X2. So it'll be exactly the same on the Mate XS2. You can see that I'm running Gboard here, so you can install a lot of things that you probably thought you couldn't. You just got to find the APK file. Now, the haptics with this phone, I happen to really like. Nice, strong pulses. It feels the vibration, that feedback that we are getting from the haptics on this, so much better than the earlier model here, the Mate X2. The X2, I find the haptics to be terrible. It's very weak. It's not really that good. It's one of my complaints on that phone, but it's really nice. And it's just the weight of this. Now, because we do have that ridge along here, holding it one-handed is not actually that bad at all. It's quite comfortable. And that weight, again, of it, I've been approximately about 256 grams, about 50 grams lighter than other foldables I really do like. And our audio. So the Mate XS2 does have those two loudspeakers right here. We don't have a 3.5mm headphone jack, but you can use Type-C to 3.5mm adapters, and it sounds fine. Now, there is an earpiece. There's a little tiny gap at the top here where the sound comes through, and voice calls, I've tested it out. They sound just like any other flagship to me. So the speakers, they have a little hint of bass, as you hear from the track I'm about to play, some reasonably good mids. And overall, for loudspeakers in a foldable device, they do sound good. Volume could be a little higher, but overall, I am impressed with the speakers in this. I don't think they're bad at all. So here's that sample. Gaming performance is excellent on the Mate XS2. So this is PUBG. And, oh, I need to move that trigger Just managed to get a kill there. That's lucky. I'm out of ammo completely. My health's not too good. But good performance. You can see as I look around here, there is no lag at all. No noticeable lag. Snapdragon 888, maybe last gen, but it is fast. And I've got someone over there too, another enemy. And I've got no ammo. I need to find some ammo. So very smooth, good performance. And because it's such a nice large screen here, the gaming experience I find to be fantastic. Very immersive and good audio too coming through those speakers with PUBG. Hopefully some ammo here for me. Quick sample of our front-facing camera. So this one is 10.7 megapixels. It does shoot up to 4K 30, 4K 60, and it does have electronic image stabilization. As you see as I walk ahead, that the shot here isn't too bad, too steady. So this 10 megapixel camera, which is on the outside of the screen, isn't the highest quality one. So what I will do now is I'll swap over and use that main rear camera as the selfie camera instead of relying on this one to improve the quality. As you can see now, using this camera, the quality really does improve compared to that outer camera. So it's a good option we have, and you can also use the ultra wide and shoot vlogs like this with the ultra wide camera. Like so, which allows me, as you can see, to get a lot in the shot. I'm not even holding it right back. If I do so like now, you see a lot of my arm here, which looks kind of weird, but look at how much more I can get into the shot right here. So if you like to shoot like group vlogs, then it's ideal for that, using the screen once it's folded around, using the back of the screen there, the back of the phone and the main cameras. So using that ultra wide camera, as I pan around, you can see that it's quite smooth. Now and then there are a few judders that do come through, but I do like the electronic stabilization, the level that we're seeing here. It almost looks like the Google Maps view, the street view, when you drag around the point of view there. It's almost very similar to that. So if I just walk ahead, you can see that stabilization. Now as I'm shooting, I can then zoom. So this is digital zoom, and then it's going to 1x, which is now. You see it transition over. So that's gone to the main 50 megapixel camera. And then if I keep zooming here with a digital zoom, 2x now, 3x, and then at 3.5, you'll see it clip over. That's now gone over to the 8 megapixel 3x optical zoom camera. And I can take that up to about 5x there, but it's not looking that great when you start to zoom a lot. So my first impressions of this phone now after using it a day are that it is an excellent piece of hardware. The engineering that's gone into this is still amazing, even though the design is not original. This is just a revision of the original Mate XS, and now it's Mate XS2. So the weight of it is what I really like, and the fact that you can use it so much more like a normal phone with a 6.5-inch screen just looks great. It's very, very usable, and when it's closed like this, at times I kind of forget when I'm using it that it is an actual foldable. So pressing the button, of course, that feels nice the way it pops up. You open that up, and the build quality, the engineering with that hinge is exceptionally good. And looking at it at an angle, it's like I can barely see that crease. This has to be the best foldable so far when it comes to the crease, and you can really barely feel that too when I run my finger over it. Now, battery life, I just want to give you a bit of an approximate here because I've been using it a lot. I've been hammering it all day. It is looking around about 5.5 hours, 120 hertz screen, but that's me using it unfolded a lot. So if you use it folded more, then I do believe you should extend that battery life out quite a bit to maybe about 7 hours or so. It really depends, yes, on what you're doing with it. 120 hertz is, of course, going to take more of a toll on the battery compared to, say, 90 that I have with the Mate X2. Now, I normally get about 6.5 hours out of this, slightly more than the Z Fold 2 and 3, which I normally got about 5 hours on-screen time out of. This one, probably about that if you're always using it a lot open, the screen that is. So overall, it's a great phone. The cameras, they look reasonably good for what they are. Main sensor, sorry, does take a really good photo, but it's not going to be a phone for everyone, of course. It's more fragile. That's why they include the cover, the case in the box. So if you're placing it down on a table, hopefully you're not going to be slowly scratching up that protective coating, the plastic film that's over the top of that. It shouldn't be happening. Now, tradesmen probably would not be the ones going for a phone like this. If you were to drop it on site, land it on a rock, and it hit it on the angle there, then of course you aren't going to be able to break that screen quite easily. The price is very expensive. So it's around 2,000 euros, 2,000 US dollars, and it does not have the latest and greatest chipset in it. It's the Snapdragon 888, last gen. It's also only got a 4G modem in this. So if you're someone that needs 5G, I personally don't, and 5G in my area here is terrible. It's as fast as 4G. It doesn't make any difference to me there, but I know there are people that need to download huge amounts of files and things, and they need 5G. Sadly, this doesn't have it. But apart from that, I really do like where the future is heading for foldable phones. This, I think, is fantastic. And I really hope we do start seeing more outer foldable phones. Yes, they're more fragile, but I'm sure they're going to improve upon that and make these phones more durable with newer coating as the technology improves. So I don't want to see all of the outer folds disappear and all become inner folds only. That would be a real shame. So thank you so much for watching my hands-on first impressions here of Huawei's Mate XS2.